listener-supported, and as a fundraising promotion, I have a kick-ass free gift for a $100 donation. 35,000 seeds. 25 years in the freezer. Long-term storable, 54 different varieties. So if food prices go crazy, the shit hits the fan, or if you just want to save tons of money every year by creating your own food like I do, grab our seed pack special. Just look for the banner on the homepage at freedomslips.com. Don't be a statistic. Don't be part of the problem. Be part of the solution. We start taking care of ourselves and not depending on the megacorps to provide unhealthy, nasty food. Included in this package is also a DVD with 900 survival and off-grid living documents and the offline home canning how to do everything website. So when you're growing all that food, you know how to can it, store it, preserve it, etc. with all these documents. So thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. I hope that you will pick up this package and start learning to be free. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, where information never sleeps and freedom is one seed that needs to be planted.
What are we doing live? Goes in eternity.
All right, let's get it going. Are you ready? Are you ready? Let's go! Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. It is 10 p.m. Thursday evening, and we are here live on Studio A. Yeah, you've waited all week for the most cutting-edge topics and guests, and now it is time to deliver. That's right, it's the Stephen D. Kelley Show with your host, Stephen D. Kelley.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Stephen D. Kelley Show. I'm your host, Stephen D. Kelley. Thursday night, Friday morning, wherever you're at. Big show tonight. Special guest, Robert William Tosh Plumlee. We will call him Tosh. Former CIA pilot, flew many covert missions with the as a contractor for the CIA, and he is going to be sharing with us his experiences, and we are going to be covering some very incredible material, and he is going to continue with us next week when we will bring in additional personnel, including at least 2, possibly 3 DEA agents and another CIA agent, and we are going to unravel all of the intrigues involving the covert operations running drugs and weapons back and forth across the border, funding the Contras, murder, intrigue. It's an intense story that goes over many years, and it's a complex story, and we're very fortunate to have these gentlemen that are willing to share their experiences and enlighten us. Before I introduce him, I want to remind everybody that this is listener-supported radio. We do depend on your donations. There's a site support button on our homepage. Very easy to find, very easy to access. And I promised I wouldn't do this, but I got something that came up, and I need to ask my listeners. I know there's a lot of you out there to help me out. Next weekend, or next Wednesday, is my birthday. And unfortunately, I have a ridiculous crisis on my hands, and I need help. So I'm asking for some help from some listeners. If anything you can do, I would be happy to sell books, whatever, but I have a PayPal account, Stephen Kelley, Stephen Kelley 714@gmail.com. And if you'd like to contact me about getting a book, try to email me at law17gun, that's law17gun@aol.com. And I'll bring that up again before the end of the show. But again, I don't normally do this, and I'm embarrassed to do this with my guest here, but yes, I am asking for help. So, crisis, please help. Thank you. All right, William, sorry to put you through that, but very happy to have you here. Please unmute your microphone and say hello to the listeners.
Hello, listeners. Yeah, I was going to ask you if I could borrow some money.
Yeah. We're all in that situation. Huh? I know. You got that girlfriend though that makes all the money that helps you out though, huh?
There you go.
She's
That's
got
it.
that good government job. Anyway, I met you on Facebook a little while ago, and you've kind of come onto the scene, and I think you've been here for a while, but as of late, you've been getting very active with sharing your information, and you've developed quite a following. And I'm constantly on the lookout for heavyweights such as yourself to come on the show and help me to stir up the mud, so to speak. And I think that you're one of these individuals that has no fear of shedding light on some of the darkest secrets that our leaders would like to keep secret. So you've done a few shows. You've just been on Coast to Coast. Could you tell us a little bit about when you started doing this? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I've been on Alex Jones a couple of times, and I've been on Coast to Coast when John Wells was with Coast to Coast, and then he went with Caravan to Midnight, and I've been on a couple of shows with him, basically doing background stuff on this. Mm-hmm. And then also I've been on Hagman and Hagman. And it looks like that I may be going back on Alex Jones to bring up to date a few matters, as well as Hagman and Hagman. And then next week, next week your program. Right. So, and as far as Facebook, I started this more as an experiment, trying to bring documentation and vetted sources to the forefront. Mainstream media has these type stories pretty well scattered all over the place, and I personally believe that's done on purpose. I don't have too much confidence in mainstream media covering events or stories like this. They've demonstrated that to me in the past. So, but I was completely overwhelmed by the response that I got from Facebook. It did show me a lot. I mean, I'm normally I don't associate with with social media. Hasn't been a good experience in the past, but in this situation, pulling all this stuff together, it showed me one thing, that the American people are starving, number one, for leadership, starving for knowledge, and starving to find out what our government has really been doing secretly behind the scenes, secretly spending our money, secretly passing laws without going through proper channels. And so in bringing this all together in one place, I've gone back to gather a series of articles that I was part of. Operations.
Well, Bill, let's talk about that real quick. For the people that don't know you, you were a contract pilot for the CIA, flying covert missions into Central America and that sort of thing. Can you give us a little background real quick so that people understand?
Yeah. We'll speed it up here. I know we have a time problem here, and I have a tendency to ramble.
Well, you got a lot to say, a lot to talk about, and I know we got 2 weeks, but go ahead.
Okay, I'll start back in '54.
There you go.
And I got involved in the Cuban project. I was stationed with JM Wave, not Jim Wave, but JM/Wave Station, Miami, Florida, as a flying guns and ammunition into Fidel Castro. At the same time that we were supporting also Batista and sending weapons to Batista, we also had a covert operation, and we were funding a little-known rebel by the name of Fidel Castro, and this was 1957 through 58, and then into 59 when he rode into Havana on an American-captured Sherman tank. At that point, led up into the Bay of Pigs, did some flying with C-46s and C-47s in Ratula, Nicaragua, known as Happy Valley, where we trained and ferried various aircraft in to prepare for the Bay of Pigs, working with the Alabama Air Guard and some of the Air Guard pilots that was training with an operation known as Tide and red tide. Since that time, documentation in that area has come out and been confirmed, and I'll speed it up. So went through those operations, led up into the early 60s, 62, 63, up into the Kennedy assassination, beyond the Kennedy assassination, and shortly after the Kennedy assassination, I went out on what they called the farm. Got out of ops for a while, had a family, was married, raised children. Well, I didn't raise them, but I mean, I had children. Well, I didn't have the children. My wife had the children. But I, at that point, was going to get out of operations, was going to, put it all behind me. I was starting to get a sort of a bad taste in my mouth. I'd already been in the military since 1954. I'd run away from home when I was 14, joined the Army, Texas National Guard, all that good stuff. And then I got picked up while I was in the Army that led into me going to work in Miami, and eventually when I was 20 years old or 21 years old, started flying guns into Castro. So backing up, I went on the farm, got out of that for a few years, went broke, needed money, had a big fight with the IRS, and then I had to go back. I had two things to do. I could either become a thief and go rob stores, or I could go to work for the CIA again as a contract pilot and get myself out of the financial bind that I was in. So I left the farm, went back into operations, small type charter work, cargo work, dropping cargo, got involved in the drug war as an operative, doing interdiction, classifying or recording the routing and so on like that. So that led up into the 70s, 78s, and then I went into Tri-State Drug Task Force with Governor Bruce Babbitt in Arizona. Contact with Phoenix Organized Crime Detail was the CIA cutout contact. Worked with Barry Goldwater and his security advisor by Bob Lombardo, and started back in documenting and worked undercover, infiltrating various groups in Mexico. Flew guns and ammunitions through Mexico into Central America. When 83 came along, started getting involved running guns down to Central America and bringing cocaine back into the United States. This went on for off and on 3 or 4 years. And then things began to get a little funny. We started having a lot of political infiltration into our groups. The situation started turning. The ops began to turn into a profit type thing, and allegations were being made that special people were making money off gun running and filtering through cutout companies back into campaign contributions, and that went on for a couple of years. So then in 1983, a couple of our pilots got busted for gun running, but they were on sanctioned operations, and a couple of them went to jail. So I got a little nervous and decided, well, I better make contact. So as a government contract employee, if I run into anything that's illegal, according to law, I'm supposed to report it to my supervisors. Well, if I'd reported that to my supervisors at that point in time, I'd be dead. So what I did, I reported it to Senator Gary Hart through his security advisor, Bill Holden at the time. This was in 1983. We started a series of meetings that went on from 1983 all the way up to 1986. What I did, I marked all the battle maps. Well, I don't call them battle maps, but all the flight maps, the staging areas, the code names of the operations, put them all in a map. Then I went to Senator Hart, presented this to them. We went through a 2-year, and I would call it an investigation, where I was feeding this information to Hart's security advisor, and he in turn was taking the information and turned it over to the Senate Foreign Relations Committee and the Senate Intelligence Committee. And at that point in time, they refused to act upon any of the information. We found out some years later that the reason they didn't act upon the information that was provided and the vetted sources, other pilots, and the flyways, and the aircraft ID numbers, and the refueling stations in Mexico at drug runners' ranches was because they already knew about it. And at that point in time, there was allegations being made that some of these Mexican politicians, as well as American politicians, were working a scam deal, and it turned out to be a profit operation. So I felt that I was going to go to jail. So I got the information out there before the fact as a countermeasure in case the DOJ tried to file charges on me as being a gun runner, or a drug runner rather, and a gun runner. So also I contacted, in California, a magazine called San Diego Reader, with a reporter by the name of Neil Matthews, and he did an extensive, I think it was 6-page article, and the title of the article was "I Ran Drugs for Uncle Sam." And in that article was the complete photograph of the map with all the staging areas of people that would soon become prominent in the investigations of the Iran-Contra, which the United States government, through the Reagan administration, was shipping arms to the southern front of the Iran-Contra movement, and also into Nicaragua during the Reagan era in violation of the Bolton Amendment. So we were, again, supplying weapons, the same type of operation that was used during the Cuban era. We, again, took that off the shelf, if I might say it this way, dusted that operation off a little bit, tweaked it up, put it back out on the line, and then we started doing the same thing of running guns and ammunition to the southern front of the Iran-Contra, the freedom fighters, and that was the beginning of the Iran-Contra.
Hey, Bill, I gotta ask you something real quick. It seems to me that when I was dealing with the Ollie North gang back in those days, with the whole Contras, I thought it was CIA, but it turned out later on that it was actually NSA. It seems to me that you're actually working with the NSA in this Contra stuff.
Well, you're almost half right there. NSC, also National Security Council, was actually taking orders from the White House, which was the Reagan administration. So right. What you have the White House at that point in time running a gun running operation, knowingly bringing cocaine back into this country in order to covertly off the books finance the operation of the southern movement of the Iran-Contra. And some of that went to Costa Rica, and some of it went in through Mexico. And we used Mexican ranches as our refueling areas in Mexico, where the CIA paid the people that owned those ranches large sums of money for the services that they provided us. We had to make concessions with known drug cartel in order to use their cutout runways down in the jungles, and then also to use their runways for refueling in Mexico. So it was sort of a tit for tat type thing where we would make payments to these drug lords to use their facilities. And
what was this? It sounds to me like you went through a process. We all go through this process where we sort of wake up, or we sort of turn the other side, or we start working against all this. What for you was it the finding out that this was just a for-profit drug operation, and that you were putting yourself at risk to take the fall for these guys, or was it something else?
Well, in my case, and a few other pilots, we'd have meetings, we'd talk, and we were getting a little jumpy about what the administration at that time was doing to some of us guys that were actually, some of us were military, still active, some of us worked for airlines, still had jobs, and most of us, at least from my point of view, got involved in that because we thought we were doing a good thing by doing drug interdiction, logging it so that in the United States we could see and shut down the routings that were coming in from South America in the Ochoa Escobar era coming up through Mexico through Carl Quintero's ranch. And this was in the early days before Joaquin Guzman came in the step. And these guns and stuff going back and forth, it began to certain people in Washington and the NSC started blocking us, and we began to ask questions of why these drug routes, Rooster Hop, Penetrate, and some of those, and Grasshopper, was not being shut down. Had a good friend.
Oh, Bill, this was during Reagan, or are we getting to Bush now?
Getting up into the Reagan-Bush era.
Okay.
I'm talking from 83, 85 up until Iran-Contra broke when Hassenfuss bailed, and a good friend of mine, Buzz Sawyer and Cooper, got killed in the C-130 that belonged to Barry Seal, who was later became known as also a covert operator and gun runner and drug runner, and quite a history there. But yet he got killed by the Colombians in a safe house in New Orleans, or outside New Orleans, set up by a judge because he was talking about what I'm talking about right now. That's another story. I mean, there's thousands of octopus arms out here in this thing I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm. Now, Barry Seal, he's mostly associated with the MENA and the Clinton administration.
Right. Yeah, it gets into another era. Excuse me 1 minute. I hate to cough in your ear. I hope it didn't bother you. But yeah, that's another era, and that's getting a little bit ahead of the time frame here. But most of us pilots there that were messing with, this was before Santa Elena, Costa Rica, which the secret air base down there in Costa Rica was actually, it was there, but it hadn't been, the runways hadn't been extended. That base was later known in Ollie North's notebook as Point West. We used that place to stash guns, pick up the various things. I think there was something like 27 pilots involved in most of that. My good friend Celly Castillo, who was DEA, also monitored the warehouse down in that area at Ilopango in El Salvador. And we photographed these weapons and so on like that. Well, getting back to my story, some of our pilots, Palmer and who had Vortex, and some of these people were getting busted. They were getting DOJ was starting to put gun running charges on some of these guys. So some of these people that was working a sanctioned White House operation, and not a CIA. CIA acted logistical support in those days. So they began to get a little nervous when it appeared that the White House and the Contra thing and the interdiction program, nothing was being interdicted. The evidence bins in Miami had been broken into. Large quantities of cocaine had been taken out. Same thing happened in El Toro Marine Naval Air Station, and then Colonel James Sabot, a Marine colonel, had found out about it and was investigating, and eventually he, quote, quote, committed suicide, which appears to have been murder, as well as some of the other pilots that did not go out before the fact and log what they were doing or what we were doing. The only thing that saved me, I believe, from going to jail or getting killed was that I went to Senator Hart, and he wrote a letter, and he had copies of the maps before the fact that was turned over to two committees, and those two committees refused to investigate the information. However, that pulled them back away from me and four other pilots, and we felt that we were a little bit safe. So then at that point, the DOJ approached us, wanted us to do an undercover sting operation for them, FBI, and most of us refused to do it because it was obvious that we were being set up so that charges could be filed upon us and make us felons like they did with Celly Castillo, and therefore we would be convicted felons, understanding that we would be pardoned. However, we still would have the stigma of character assassination because we were gun running felons. So, as I said, the only thing that stopped this, in my case, and a couple of other pilots, was that we had talked about this to Senate committees and vetted the sources and confirmed it with the documents that was before the fact, before Contra broke, naming the places like Hall's Ranch, Santa Elena, Costa Rica, Punta Arenas, Panama, Panami, and all these kind of places, plus the staging areas that we were dropping cargo in Borrego Springs in California, Bill Williams by Lake Havasu City. We were dropping contraband all over the desert Southwest that would be later picked up and shipped to wherever, allegedly to evidence or to interdiction bins at various Air Force bases or whatever. And Yuma Proving Grounds was a perfect place for us to come in, evade radar, and make these drops, and they'd be picked up later. I don't know if I'm rambling or what. I'm trying to follow a timeline here.
No, it's very good. Yeah, continue. The only thing I was going to say was, you seem to be going, the incident in El Toro with the murder of the commander, Sabo. Okay, that was during Clinton administration, I believe, right?
Well, he was killed in February, before Kiki Camarena. See, all these guys bought it right around that time. My timeline goes like this: 1990, 91. I think Sabo was killed in 91, January, somewhere along in there. Kiki was killed in, of course, 85. That was a few years before that. So during that time, I think we lost 3 or 4 military people to quote suicides. And then also on the El Toro base, I think there was 2 others that one of them was a refueling guy. One of them was the person that did the flight logs into El Toro. He was found, I think, hit by a truck. And I might have this backwards. I don't, but anyway, the drift is there. Some of these pilots and some of these coordinators and some of these loaders ended up getting killed within a time span there of about 7-8 years. So there was a purge going on, and then some of the evidence from El Toro had been leaking out into the streets of L.A., and then one of the gang members of the L.A. had privy to get some of the cocaine that was allegedly, or not allegedly, was stored at El Toro for the purpose of interdiction, and they had access to get that stuff out on the street. And Marine Colonel James Sabo had found out about it, and he started his own investigation. However, his upper people already knew about the pilfering of cocaine. However, they had to let that go unimpeded, because if they had cracked down on it, it would have exposed the weapon shipments that were coming from Central America after the 101st had held maneuvers down there. Those weapons would be taken off the books in airdrops as being damaged, and then they would be shipped through up through Mexico, Carl Quintero's ranch, refueling on up into El Toro, and eventually to China Lakes to be retrofitted, cleaned up, recosmoed and everything they do on weapons, tested, new barrels, all that kind of stuff. And then they would be loaded on trucks, taken back to El Toro, where we and C-130s would pick them up, private C-130s, and pick them up, civilians, and fly those weapons back down to arm the Southern Front. So basically what we were doing, from my viewpoint at that particular time, we were setting up a conflict in a foreign country. We were escalating that conflict in a foreign country, and we were supplying guns to both sides of the conflict that we started. And it turned out to be a profit operation on selling those weapons, and through various cutout companies that was monitored by the CIA, and also the logistical support was done by the CIA. That money, and I'm not going to say it was filtered off into or pilfered off into campaign contributions, but about it wasn't 16. It was something like $4 billion in weapons were lost, and the money didn't show up in the Treasury. So at that point in time, before Contra broke, there was a large discrepancy on the GAO books about where U.S.-made high-impact weapons were going and being lost. So some of the weapons that were taking off the books during airdrops for the 101st and 82nd in Honduras began to show up in radical hands in other countries, as well as missiles that went from prior to or right after or before Carter. We were taking TOW missiles and sending them to Iraq on military aircraft and civilian aircraft. Some of this stuff came out in previous hearings, but anyway, that's what was going on. So anyway, a military operation, it turned out to be a private, individual, special interest operation for profit rather than trying to help or support an operation. Now, I'm not supposed to talk about all this stuff, but it is what it is.
All right, well, let me just say this, William. It seems to me that what you're describing, and this is over various time period, Ronald Reagan to Jimmy Carter and what have you, but I think one of the biggest lessons that we need to walk away with is this is the same MO and the same procedures, this gun running and the drug moving that goes on in almost every conflict. And I think if we look at Syria, Libya, Ukraine, and so many of these Afghanistan, Iraq, like you said, that they've done essentially the same thing. I was just reading today, I was trying to remember about the Rothschilds funding both sides of the war. I think it was during the Russians and the Turks. I think I can't remember exactly which war it is, but this is so typical. I think this is if we want to educate these people, we want them to see that this is what's going on right now in all these other conflicts. So this is what we're opening people's eyes to.
Right.
Okay, we're getting up. We're getting closer to things that are going on today. Obviously, you haven't been involved directly recently, but it's just so much of this reminds me of, say, Operation Fast and Furious. Clearly the same thing. So political parties change, administrations change, but there's really no difference. Do you have any opinions about Fast and Furious?
Oh yeah, I've got a pretty good opinion. I'm gonna back up here a little bit. We're talking about international arms smuggling. Most of the weapons, U.S.-made weapons, came from the direct commercial sales program, and an individual many years ago, back in the 70s, by the name of Edward P. Wilson, had access to those weapons, and those weapons were shipped to Libya, and some of them were stored in underground bunkers, and then they suddenly, years later, even today, have appeared in the Middle East. So we have U.S.-made weapons pilfered by a arms merchant that was shipped to Libya, which years later, through Gaddafi, showed up in skirmishes and battlefields in other countries. Mm-hmm. Now, Fast and Furious, in my opinion, it was not planned this way, but it was used this way. Fast and Furious was set up by ATF for the purpose of tracking guns that was going into Mexico, so that they would put tracking devices on those weapons and be able to track those weapons as they went to various gangs and new formations of cartels. This was about the same time that the Mexican army deserted with U.S. weapons through the direct commercial sales, which was legally obtained by the Mexican army through agreements with the State Department on purchases of the direct commercial sales program. So what we had weapons legally going into Mexico, according to treaties and all these agreements, going into Mexico, and then the Mexican army, not the Mexico Marinos, not the Navy, out of Mexico City, but the armies out of Juarez and other border towns would pilfer these weapons. All right, in one case, a whole battalion took all these American weapons and took them with them, and they deserted the ranks of the Mexican army and formed their own group known as the Zeta. And the Zeta was heavily armed with U.S.-made weapons that was pilfered or siphoned off from the Mexican army arsenals and facilities, similar to our National Guard armories, where we used to get weapons from and load them up on aircraft and take them to radical groups in foreign countries. In other words, that's how we funded, or that's how we sent the arms to these people. And Am I making sense here? I'm trying to stay with a little bit of a timeline. So anyway,
No, but the Zetas, though, these are the ones that are most closely associated with the CIA. Would you say they are actually a arm of the CIA? They're working for them?
No, I wouldn't say that they're an arm of the CIA. There's a political element there that is really not CIA, but it's our elected officials, many of them, who have worked in to make their cut of the weapons that are being sold and transferred to some of the cartels. And that goes on up to Beltran and some of the people out in the Gulf Cartel and so on like that. So by keeping a supply of weapons going to Mexico legally, knowing that those weapons are going to be pilfered off, and then through cutout companies, many of them, certain funding would come back and be filtered out to some of our elected officials, some of our corporations, whatever, for their good work, should I say, rewarded for turning their head the other way, rewarded for not investigating in 1983 in two committees, the Senate Foreign Relations Committee and the Senate Intelligence Committee, as vetted and documented by the Senator Gary Hart's letter of 1990, February 14th, 1990. This information that I'm talking about was given into two committees, Senate Foreign Relations, Senate Intelligence. They refused to act upon the information when they had it completely documented. So that was the first alarm that there was pilfering of money from arms coming back into election campaigns. Mm-hmm. So I just talked out of school. I just dug up a skeleton.
Okay, we talk about Gary Hart, of course. Do you suspect that his involvement in this business and trying to uncover what was going on was the reason why he was targeted with the whole monkey business scandal?
I know exactly how that came down, and we'll get to that in a minute if you want me to go that far.
Well, of course.
Okay, all right, but we'll go back to Fast and Furious here. Right. So the ATF set up an operation to try to track weapons, and they give the weapons. Well, I knew something was funny when I was working with Task Force 7 in Mexico, a group out of a military group out of Fort Bliss, Texas. They were training the Mexican Marinos, the Navy, not the Mexican Army. Mm-hmm. They were training them in tactics and procedures to go in and hunt down Joaquin Guzman, Carl Quintero, Beltran, a guy I can't remember all of them, but they were a bunch of them. And my good friend Bill Conroy of Narco News started writing about the House of Death, started writing about arms shipments, and then the Task Force 7, contacted me when I was in Las Cruces, and they said they had a real problem down there, that they felt that elements on our side of the border, whether it be ATF or someone else out of Washington, D.C. or the Pentagon, was sending information that was compromising their operation in Mexico, their covert operation in Mexico, and they were a little bit afraid that their boys were going to get killed by some of the cartels that they were supposed to, or some of the Mexican army that they were supposed to be training down there, some of the Marinos. At that time, they wasn't sure about the Marinos, and they definitely was not sure about the Mexican army. So they contacted, quote, quote, an investigative reporter, or a guy that was passing himself off as an investigative reporter, and I said, okay. I said, I've got to see this stuff before I can do anything. Now, these guys could not come forward and talk about what they were doing because they were still military and they were under their oath and they're under secrecy clause, and other than that, they would have been eliminated. So I told them, I said, okay, I'll go over there. And I went a series, some legal and some not legal, in and back and forth across the border, photographing what I could find over there in the way of weapons. In the warehouse in Juarez, we run across anti-aircraft guns. We run across cases and cases of night vision goggles. We run across fake Mexican Army uniforms that the new cartel would put on and play like, well, not play. I mean, they would put on and act like they were the Mexican army, and then they would go into these plazas and take people out, and that was the beginning of the Mexican War on their own people, and over 60,000 people were killed in less than a 6-year period, and 6,000 Mexicans were killed in Juarez in 1 year. This was not picked up in the American mainstream media, and the reason being is that the gatekeepers that are assigned in the mainstream media by the government and by CIA would take this stuff off the wire, because if they got investigated, it would open up the international gun running operation, weapons smuggling to the Middle East and Libya and other places, and it would expose the cash cow that was being kicked back to various campaign contributions and presidential contributions in this country. I don't think I can say that any clearer than what I just said.
Let's name some names here. How about Dianne Feinstein?
I'm not going to go into politics, okay? I mean, you guys know the name.
We know who the dirty ones are, huh?
Oh yeah, hell, I don't have to tell you. I mean, here's what I've always said about this. I've said this. Don't believe a damn thing I'm telling you. Just a journalist. If your mother tells you, confirm it. Don't believe her. All I'm doing is pointing the way for a new generation to go out and do their own investigation. In other words, someone has to point a younger generation, a new generation, or someone to go out on point, vet the sources, find the information, and come back and demand that it be changed by our own elected officials. The blockage comes because our elected officials, some of them, and there's good ones up there, but the apple cart, I guess you say, is pretty rotten, pretty rotten to the core. If you're into politics in Washington, D.C., more than a year, you either become contaminated or they throw you out.
I think, okay, Bill, let me just say this for the benefit of everybody listening. You know, obviously we're trying to reach out to people who are of an age that they don't remember the Iran-Contra, they don't remember the Ollie North hearings and all that, but what we're talking about, this corruption and these illegal criminal activities have been going on for multiple administrations that span both parties for many, many decades, and we're talking about what? Reagan, Bush, Carter, Clinton, Obama, you name it, they've all been involved in this at one time or another, so they're all dirty, and we're not trying to point fingers at any one particular person or administration. This is continuous, and it's been ongoing, and the gatekeepers are not the people in the politicians. They're certainly well paid, but these people are behind the scenes. These are movers and shakers who aren't necessarily American citizens or what, but is there anybody that you want to point fingers at here, Bill?
Well, let me back you up here, and let me say something about Carter.
All right.
Carter tried to expose that. That's what got Carter on that great, what you call it, September surprise, whether it was investigated or whether it was a whitewashed investigation or whatever. But Jimmy Carter, and I don't get in politics, and I don't pass judgment on whether he was a good president, a bad president, or he wasn't a strong president, or he was a weak president. I don't care. The point is this. Carter attempted to expose this kickback scheme and international gun running that was going on in this country. He knew about weapons, again, going to the Middle East. Now, if the young people will go and verify what I just said, they will learn a lot about how our government has come from good, honest, hard-working elected officials into the corruption that is given us on election day by special interests in foreign countries and local and corporations. So the corporations began during that era, right out there at that election between Carter and going into Reagan and Bush era and all that. That's when certain people began to find out, hey, this is not a freedom fighter type thing. This is an operation for profit for a select few. Mm-hmm. And Carter did try to get an investigation, just like I tried to get an investigation through Gary Hart, Senator Hart, And then they did a number on Carter, as well as they did a number on Senator Hart. So that's when we knew we were going up against some very strong people, international people, that had infiltrated our political structure for the sole purpose of profit, and taking a percentage of that profit and kicking it back to those elected officials that would play ball with the international arms merchants. Did I say that right?
Oh yeah. Well, I'll tell you, Bill. It was the death squads that got me. That's what really got me to wake up and see that the good guys weren't so good and the bad guys weren't so bad. For you, I guess it was a greed thing. Well, you know, the death squads that would go into the Honduras and El Salvador and Nicaragua, take out whole villages.
Well, the early death squads go all the way back to the early 50s. We've had assassin squads for years. I mean, that's all part of Black Ops. Hell, we've had them. I mean, most of the guys that trained out with me out of Fort Bliss, they came from the old OAS. They worked behind German lines during those days. Some of them worked with the raiders over in New Guinea, in the South Pacific. After the war, they came in. Before the CIA was formed by Truman, most of those guys are from the OAS and on both sides of the Pacific and Germany. They're the guys that came in to train most of the recruited CIA people at that point how to do dirty tactics and how to kill and how to character assassination through the illusionary warfare training out of Nags Head, North Carolina, and also outright assassin techniques on political enemies. So these boys come in and trained us boys and other people from military on how to infiltrate, how to do sabotage, how to start wars in foreign countries, how to escalate those wars through propaganda, how to control the communications, which is going on today, so that they could win the battle. You control an enemy's communications, you've got him by the testicles.
Speaking of paid CIA assassins, we're going to try to get Chip Tatum in here next week. I was kind of scanning to see if he's online, but I don't see him. We'll drag him in here.
I like Chip. I don't know Chip that well, but I've been following him a little bit. He's got some, how do you say that word?
Cojones.
Okay, there you go. To some degree. Now, I don't agree with everything Chip says, and he sure as hell don't agree with everything I say. But that's the way it is in ops. And, so we'll leave it at that. Back to this ATF thing that I was going to mention. ATF basically became to be a cover so that it would not bleed into the international arms shipments that was going through Mexico. It wasn't planned that way by ATF, but that operation was taken over, and certain people as straw purchasers were put on the carpet out of Columbus, New Mexico. There was payoffs going through Columbus, New Mexico, and there was also some people that was arrested for gun running that had absolutely nothing to do with gun running, but the DOJ saw fit to use that as a cover because there was too many investigators getting too close out of the Juarez gun running operation or international gun running operation that the Task Force 7 had became aware of and asked me to go into that warehouse and take pictures, which I did, and turn those pictures over to proper authorities in order to protect that task force from getting whacked. So that's what happened on that. Now, when I knew something was funny about that, I was asked to put tracking devices on a couple of trucks in Columbus, New Mexico that was going across border. Those trucks were loaded with guns. This had nothing to do with mom and pop stores and all that. That was all a diversion to pull away from what was going on. Now, ATF had put tracking devices or wanted tracking devices put on those trucks so that they could go in and do their program, which was releasing weapons to gangs and see where those weapons showed up so that they, quote, quote, could stop it. In the process of that, certain special interests found out about that and they had me and others take those tracking devices off the trucks so that those trucks could go unimpeded out into the desert and bear those weapons in strategic places around Ascension and Palomas and as far south as Piedras Negras across from Eagle Pass. And then later we had a little situation in Falcon Lakes where someone accidentally run across the border at that lake, Falcon Lake, and a gentleman got killed, and his wife almost got killed too. So there again was
the boat, the little what was the jet ski incident?
Yeah, the jet ski incident. Those weapons had just left and went down, and they were stashing those weapons in strategic places inside Mexico to be used by various cartels. In that particular case, it was the Zeta. So there again, that's the Mexican Army, or the group, not the whole Mexican Army, but the group. They go in certain sections down there in Mexico. I can't remember what sections they were with. I think most of them were out of Juarez, and the others were out of Tijuana. And they eventually formed their cartels, and then some of those split off, and they went, and then you get into the history of all that drug running and all that. So the ATF turned out to be not intentionally by ATF, but you could see where you could push the deal off into Fast and Furious, turn it into a small operation run by mom and pop straw purchases. But how do you get an anti-aircraft weapon across the United States border in the back of a pickup truck? You can't do it. So we found anti-aircraft weapons inside Juarez at a gym owned by one of the drug cartels, and that was recorded in the local paper. I think it was, one of the reporters, I won't name the reporter because that's not a good thing that close to the border, but picked up on it and wrote an article about it. And then I guess one of the majors did pick it up, run a small page with a picture, and that was the end of it. So if they had pursued that would have led into an international gun running, and that would have led back to where that weapon had came from, and that was part of the direct commercial sales program, and that weapon had been pilfered off from the Mexican Army. Now we're getting too far in, too much time on this part. No.
Okay, real quick, Bill. We're getting very close to the break, so I want to ask you something. But first, before I do that, I'm going to give out the call-in number because when we come back from break, we're going to start taking calls, and that call-in number is 347-688-2902. That's for Studio A, and you can also join us via Skype using the word Freedom Screen. Okay, this reminds me of Gary Webb and the Dark Liaisons, or that whole gun running issue. That remember Gary Webb, the reporter from the San Jose Mercury News, that talked about the Contra gun running into the L.A. gangs. Were you involved during that time?
Yes, I was involved in that time. In fact, Gary Webb had talked to Colonel Sabot. Mm-hmm. Ollie North had talked to Colonel Sabot. Webb had talked to Ricky Ross. Webb shot himself in the head twice.
Yeah. Webb had talked to me too.
There you go.
Yeah.
So, and what was Webb talking to you about? The very thing that I'm talking to you about now. I know what he was talking about.
Yeah. Well, we were comparing notes, But,
okay. So,
I just want to give him some emotional support, or tell him it says, "Hey, you're right on." Basically, when that came out, I was dealing with the LA North guys back in those days when he came out with that story, and I just kind of gave him some support and said, "Yeah, you're right on." So, anyway, yeah, you're right. 45 in the head. Who can shoot themselves in the head with a 45 twice? I think that's physically impossible, huh?
Well, who can shoot themselves with a shotgun shoved up their mouth, blow the back of the side of their head off, and there's no blood on the scene? He was dead before he put the shotgun in his mouth. I mean, I'm talking about Colonel Sabot. Check it out. Don't believe anything I say. I mean, hell, it's documented out there. It raises big suspicion. It's been asked to be overturned, but there's too much. It can't be overturned because it'll lead into the international gun running operation, which is currently going on to the Middle East, and I'll tie that in after break if we got time.
Yeah.
Because that task force that I was talking about was eventually pulled out of Mexico, and they were sent to Afghanistan, where three of them two of them actually, became involved with NATO intelligence source, and they found out about the weapons being shipped to Jordan and Turkey and Qatar and Pakistan to CIA safe houses run by private contractors. That same task force that worked, not the whole task force, but some individuals that worked the Task Force 7 in Mexico, when they shut that operation down, were transferred over to Afghanistan, and then the same source that had made contact with me calls me and he says, "My gosh, Tosh, you won't believe what in the hell we found over here." And he laid it all out. U.S. weapons in safe houses in Jordan, Turkey, Qatar, Pakistan. And those weapons, again, were being pilfered off into radical hands. And Ambassador Stevens found out about it, wrote a series of dispatches back to the State Department, and they told him...
There we go. Break time. All right, Tosh, go ahead and mute your microphone, everybody. We'll be back in about 4 minutes. Stay with us. Don't go away.
Radio at freedomslips.com. We'll be right back after this message. The finder of lost children and missing persons. Monique Lassan. Surveillance civil and criminal investigations. I investigate.
No, I am the chosen one.
Do not underestimate the power of good, and do not dismiss the strength of the child.
Yes, every Wednesday evening on Revolution Radio, come join our very own Eye Investigatrix, Monique Lassan, with her private Eye X-Files.
So you're the finder of lost children?
Private Eye X-Files, every Wednesday from 10 to midnight Eastern, Studio B, on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com.
I realize it's very hard for you to take in. But is your destiny to find the golden child?
Listen in to Journeys with JP, Tuesdays on Revolution Radio at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, with a variety of guests, each giving their unique perspective on their journey through to the now. Journeys offers you, the listener, a chance to share that perspective. Join me, JP, on Tuesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern on Revolution Radio, simulcast with Wolf Spirit Radio.
Every Tuesday evening on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, we present our goddess spiritual warrior, Kathy Bilski.
I command. I call to the architect of the universe's divine creators and ask for permission to quantum leap the world in all life forms on all planes and dimensions, seen and unseen, connected with planet Earth, to let us go beyond our known potential into the greatest unknown golden age the universes and worlds and all planets have ever experienced.
Kathy teaches the spiritual truth so that you may create a better life and be able to make positive changes for yourself and for the planet. She helps us remember that we are not powerless, but very creative spiritual beings having an Earth experience. Time to quantum leap into the age of divine enlightenment and let Kathy provide you with the tools of knowledge you need to awaken spiritually. That's the Quantum Leap Show. Let Light Unite every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern on Revolution Radio, Studio B.
Enter into a world unseen on Raven Star's Witching Hour. You will encounter eclectic topics from the realm of spirit brought into our matrix of truth. With your host, the Solaris Blue Raven. Solaris will bring you an array of unique guests covering topics from ghostly spirits to amazing anomalies, covert technology, UFOs, and shadowy global events.
And that's right here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, Saturdays midnight till 2 a.m. Eastern Time. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Let the magic rise.
Did you ever feel that things were not quite right? That everything was just ever so slightly askew?
Do you have, to paraphrase Morpheus, a splinter in your mind?
If you're interested in hearing the latest information about UFOs, the paranormal,
ancient cultures and structures,
monatomic elements,
longevity,
fantastic discoveries in science,
downloaded to your brain,
then tune into us. Hi, I'm Dave.
And I'm Mackie.
And we are Shiny Side Out, Sundays 2 to 4 a.m. Eastern. See you there.
Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent news story, and I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
Hey folks, you got the Nighthawk here. Do you have a favorite host? Well, imagine if you will having all the broadcast shows from 2013 to listen to anytime you want. Awesome deal, huh? Anyway, so stop by freedomslips.com and order the entire 2013 library of your favorite host for just $30. Not only do you help with the station funding to keep us on the air, you also help the host because they get half of the net on every order. Also, we have Revolution Radio's all-time favorite shows all on one disc. The details are really broad, so you'll have to visit the website and go look at the details yourself. It's, again, www.freedomslips.com/season2013.htm. And get your favorites. First come, first serve, 7 to 21 days for delivery. Thank you. This is Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, where information never sleeps. Including me, David.
We've got to stop them! They're going to kill us all!
Revolution Radio. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Okay, all right, everybody. Welcome back to the second half of the Stephen D. Kelley Show. I'm your host, Stephen D. Kelley. We're having a very good show tonight with Robert William Tosh Plumlee, a.k.a. Tosh Plumlee, CIA pilot. And before I get back to him and allow him to continue with his story, I want to remind everybody that we are listener-supported radio. We do need your support. There is a site support button on our homepage, very easy to find, and there is no such thing as a small donation. We also have a very active chat room that I would like you to visit. If you are on the computer, there's a lot of room in there. I think the chat room allows for 250 people at one time. And if we get over 250 people, we'll open up another one. But the point is that we do monitor the chat room, so it's a great way to get in there and ask questions and contact us if there's something that you want to say that you don't want to say publicly. Also, during the second half of the show, we do open the phone line, so if you'd like to come in and ask our guest a question, the phone number is 347-688-2902. That's for the Studio A line, and you can also join us on Skype using the word Freedom Screen. And at the beginning of the show, I did ask people to help me out. I'm having some issues here that I need to take care of something within a week. And it's my birthday, and I'm hoping you guys will send me some love. But I do need some help, and I don't normally ask. But if you can, my email is law17gun@AOL.com, and my PayPal is StephenKelley714@gmail.com. Anyway, anything that you can do to help me out would be appreciated, and I will do my best to not do that again. But I do have something that's very important to me I need to take care of, and I don't know what else to do, so I'm asking for help. Anyway, thank you very much for that, and thank you for your patience, William. Tosh, please come back, unmute your microphone. And we were just discussing, we've been discussing gun running and drug running and all these Mexican cartels, and we were starting to get into the connection to Benghazi and Libya and the death of the Ambassador Stevens. So where are we at? Can you pick up where we left off?
Okay, am I on air now?
Yes, you are on air right now.
Okay, great. Okay, yeah, I was showing or attempting to show where the task force who had contacted me back in 2009 that was engaged in training the Mexican Marinos out of Mexico City to weed out various Mexican Army personnel that was drifting weapons off into various gangs and cartels, and then they had in turn robbed one of the arsenals, or a few of the arsenals, were American weapons, and that in turn funded those cartels and started the big drug war in Mexico. That task force eventually, after training, after a few years, and Bill Conroy, by the way, of Narco News, covered this extensive and vetted all sources, and documented it and wrote a series of articles about all this. So that same task force, after a while, was not disbanded. They had completed their assignment, their mission inside Mexico, and a few of them went back to Fort Bliss, I won't go into that, but went back to Fort Bliss, and then eventually was transferred over to Afghanistan, or to the Middle East and Afghanistan, and a few of them went in as advisors with NATO, and in the process of that particular operation, they became privy to guns that were being stored in warehouses by private contractors hired by the CIA to monitor that. Some of our Navy SEALs had also had been assigned to move some of those weapons from those safe houses around Tripoli, the Horn, into various places near the annex and around Benghazi. This was before the ambassador was killed. The ambassador, the way I understand it, and I'd seen one memo, but I won't go into that or how I saw it, but memos were being sent back to the State Department, not necessarily about the guns that were being in these places being pilfered, but he was more concerned about how these radical groups were getting Stinger missiles. And no response. A few months or weeks or whatever later, the ambassador and most of his staff was killed or murdered or whatever. We know what happened there. I might be getting a little out of school here, but I don't particularly care. So that ambassador had already known about the guns being stored in safe houses because that was part of his job. What he was more concerned with was how they were getting missiles, and he was complaining about these would be used against our aircraft and troops. That's the information I got from the NATO task force, some individuals that work there. So what I'm trying to bridge here is that the same operation that was going on in Mexico, training and filtering guns into Mexico so that they could defend themselves against the formings of various cartels, was the same group that went over to Afghan and found a international gun running operation ongoing in that country, similar to many operations going from Mexico back to Iran-Contra and all the way back to Cuba. I summed it up in a briefing report saying Cuba, Kennedy, Contra, and beyond. And that created a firestorm in the DOJ. and made me and a friend in the DOJ become very odd at each other. You don't say things like Holder lied and people died to this administration without them want to attack you. You can't make pop shot statements against the syndicate of Chicago against this sitting president without them wanting to retaliate. I said it, and I'm glad I said it.
You're saying that this particular, even though all the previous administrations, with perhaps the exception of Carter, have been guilty of this, you're saying that the Obama administration is the most sensitive of the ones prior to him?
Okay, let me put it this way. I said it, and I'm going to say it this way. In my opinion, this administration is so far out of touch with the American people, it's sickening and appalling, in my opinion. They have demonstrated to me that they cannot be trusted, that they have lied about weapons shipments. They cost the lives of very good men and women, some we know about and some we don't know about. There's a saying around there, they control the dogs of war. It's the same sort of thing back to the Clintons. You don't mess with the Clinton clan. You don't mess with the Chicago syndicate. You don't mess with the upper echelon of the people that run this international gun running operation going to the Middle East. In other words, what I'm saying, you don't mess with the cash cow. You don't hit that piggy bank, because that piggy bank is the war chest that these politicians that win these elections work off of. Now, can I say it any clearer than that?
Have you been, now you get threatened. You're telling me just the other day you got a threat, and I know you don't pay attention to stuff. I certainly don't pay attention to stuff, but what's it like? You think it's been getting worse now, or what? Or you just ignore it?
I'll tell you what, my opinion, I'm going to say it again. It's been demonstrated that the United States of America is in a slow coup d'etat, and it's been going on pretty solid ever since about 1962, before Kennedy was killed, coming up into Vietnam and all that. We're in a slow coup d'etat, and in the last 8 years has escalated tremendously and secretly off the books, robbing us of our constitutions and our freedoms. That's the whole reason I'm talking to you. I want my country back. I want these corrupt corporate politicians that suck the hind tit out of my country, out of my politics. I'm hoping that we can motivate good young people to investigate what us old farts are saying, because we've really screwed it up for this younger generation. I hope that they will get off their butts like we should have got off our butts and get out here and make changes in this country before it's too late. In other words, there is an army forming against the American citizens. And our apathy in this country and our laziness is letting it happen. The mainstream media does not cover anything anywhere near what I'm talking about.
Well, that's right, and that's why so many people are turning to alternative radio, and that's why the station has grown as incredibly as much as it has just in the last year. I think our listenership has gone up at least 10 times just in the time since I've joined the station here in about, 8 months, I think. Huh, Sean? Something like that? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, definitely. Listeners are coming in every day, new people, and that's why it's good to go over a lot of the same topics again, because you never know when you're catching that guy who just woke up.
Well, I know, Sean, or Tosh, you're bringing people in here today. I know because you've got a huge following, and you've introduced a lot of your fans to Revolution Radio, and I know that after the show tonight, next week, that a lot of these people are going to stick around, and they're going to keep coming back. So yeah, you made a point here. We are on the front lines, and I hope all you people listening realize that, Tosh, I know you're sticking your neck out, and you've had people threaten you. I know I've gotten over this whole worrying about getting knocked off a long time ago, and that's what it takes. You got to have some balls to do this, huh?
Well, here's the thing. It's intimidation. If now I don't want to talk like they and them and those. No. If you're intimidated by our government and you lay down and roll over and get the fork stuck in you because you're done and you don't want to stand up for your Constitution, then you get the government you deserve. Now, if we've got corruption running rampart within our government, we also have some damn good elected people that today are working in government, and we've got good people in a lot of the agencies, including IRS and including CIA, that really want to do their jobs, whether it be intelligence gathering, whether it be open source information, whatever it might be. However, mainstream, corporate, whatever you want to, whoever, I don't get into this trilateral and blah, blah, and the Rockefellers and all. I mean, hell, I'm not a conspiracy person. The point is this. This is going on, and it's going to stop these young people from finding out what the hell's really going on. I sort of lost my train of thought there because I just got a flash here on the deal. Somebody just opened a line on us. So, anyway. Go ahead and ask me some questions. I saw one. Well, anyway.
Well, yeah, no, it's okay. Relax. It's okay. We'll go ahead and
get off my soapbox here.
No, you're doing great. We're having a good show. I want to remind people, though, that now is the time to call in and join us. We've got roughly, about 40 minutes left in the show. And if you want to get in here and ask a question or even relay a personal experience, now's the time to do it. That would be 347-688-2902. 347-688-2902. And of course, anybody that, if you're on my friends list or Sean's, and we can add you on Skype. So now's the time. Come on and join us. Oh, it's good.
Hey, Steve, I see a question. Am I doing the right thing here? I see a question on the
go ahead.
here.
Did Tosh fly into the...
Is that Linus to you?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, can you answer that question?
Well, yeah, I can. I think I can maybe not answer it, but I can maybe give a little insight to its origination. This says, did Tosh fly into Air Force Plant 42 in Palmdale, California? Did he fly cocaine into Air Force Plant 42? The reason I caught my attention, I'm not going to say cocaine. I don't know. I went in there twice out of Toro, which is around that area. Okay, the only reason that I went into that area was to meet up with a person that run 4 Aces Aviation. This was in 1990, and his contact was Dodd. He was a CIA contact, and he was in charge of that operation. Hangar 42, originally, the way I understood it, was making some solar aircraft around that area, and the guy that got lost, I can't remember his name offhand, it'll come to me later, Fallon, I think it was. Anyway, he crashed in Nevada near Tahoe. He was doing some things around that plant, or, that plant there in 42 in Palmdale. As far as cocaine going into that area, there's always rumors, but that was because no one knew what the cargo of these aircraft were carrying. Some of that aircraft was coming out of Site 50, or some of that cargo was coming out of Site 51 for repair, whatever, blah, blah, and nothing sinister. I mean, just because you say the word Site 51, that means little green men are jumping all over Nevada, and they're flying all kinds of crazy airplanes, and then you get, I'm not going to go there. I'm not a conspiracy freak, and I'm not trying to knock those people that believe this about Site 51, but Site 51 and Plant 42 were instrumental in doing some of the stuff in the early days of the U-2, very top secret, which Gary Powers was involved in that. So Powers had went many times to Air Force Plant 52. My connection with that was 4 Aces Aviation out of Palmdale, and that was a guns and ammunition on the international scale. I don't know if I answered the gentleman's questions properly or not, but as far as cocaine going into there, I personally did not, as far as I know, fly any cocaine into that particular plant. Most all the cocaine at that point was going to El Toro into evidence bins, allegedly to be destroyed, but for some reason, most of it wasn't destroyed. It was pilfered off, quote, quote, by enlisted men that would sell it to gangs in L.A. If you remember, around that time, the CIA director went out to L.A. to stop a potential race riot because Ricky Ross, Freeway Ricky, had mentioned that the CIA was supplying coke for the purpose of contaminating the young black children, turning it into a racial ploy, turning it that the CIA was supplying cocaine to the gangs and children, the black children of L.A.
Okay, this was during the Gary Webb story time.
Well, that's Gary Webb got into that. He got into that from some of the pilots that.
Hey, Bill, Josh, do you think that what happened over there at El Toro was one of the reasons why that base was slated to be shut down?
It had to be shut down.
So they had to get rid of the evidence.
And it's shut down over contaminated. The base has definitely been contaminated ever since World War II. You know, there's no doubt about that. And there's a good book out there, by the way, which eventually is going to become a movie, I understand, about Colonel Sabo's death, contamination on the base, and the number of cancer victims that have come up now going to VA that can't get treatment. It's another scandal. Wow. That have boils, sores, and I forget how many have died. You'd have to get the book Betrayal by Tim King and Bob O'Dowd, a couple of Marines that was stationed there, and they have firsthand account of the contamination on base, as well as the late night flights of the C-130s, private contractors that were flying in there. So these are a couple of pretty good investigators. That's been their sources are impeccable as far as being vetted and that. So, and I don't normally recommend books, and I'm not recommending a book. I'm pointing people where to go to get various documentation that's being withheld from the quote, quote, transparency of this particular corporation. We can't get that. So again, if you really opened up El Toro, you would open up international gun running. Now, the shield of that is, oh, no, it was cocaine. Wait a minute. No, what about the guns from China Lake that go through our aircraft? What about the refuelers and the cargo kickers and the loaders and the flight engineers and the guys that service the aircraft and the people that talked about late night flights going into El Toro at 3:30 in the morning and guys with long hair unloading those planes and putting it in quote, quote, evidence bins because it was cocaine? What about the weapons that were loaded with the cocaine that was removed out of the C-130s into private trucks and went to China Lakes to be retrofitted, turned around back to El Toro, flown that down south through Carl Quintero's ranch, across into Guatemala, over into John Hull's ranch. Well, John Hull was out of that at that particular time, but into places in Costa Rica, Punta Arenas, and also as far south as Argentina. So, international gun running. So that's the key. So, flying cocaine in the Air Force plant at 42, I don't know about that. I do know that supplies, secret equipment, transferring back and forth between Palmdale and Site 51 because of the U-2 program, that was the secrecy, not the secrecy to cover up cocaine smuggling. Did I answer that question right?
Yes, very good. Chip Tatum has been in the chat room, and I've been trying to drag him in here, as you noticed. And I'm assuming that he's listening. And Chip, if you're out there listening, please come on in here. Jeez.
I'm not going to say nothing. Chip and I have never met, but we certainly have crossed a lot of paths.
Well, he must be taking...
I'm going to leave that up. I'm going to leave that up to Tatum. I thought he was dead. People were telling me that man was dead. He washed up on Costa Rica. They finally got him. I've heard all kinds. I heard that I did. I faked my own death. I mean, people like us have to be character assassinated.
But Bill or Tosh, you haven't heard that I'm actually a clone? Have you heard that one?
Well, I've heard all kinds of stuff about you guys. Anybody that tries to do what you guys are doing are quote, military intelligence, CIA, and all they're trying to do is suck up the information we got so they can do a counterplay to stop what? Stop investigating the international gun running. Have your listeners Google the Direct Commercial Sales Program, Blue Lantern Report. Scan through down there and find out how much weapons are going to all these countries. Start with Latin America. Let's go with $1.3 trillion unaccounted for. Okay, I just made a statement there. Don't believe what I said. Go check it out. You don't know where to go, so you don't know things that exist like this. So then when I say things like this, they say, oh, that's conspiracy shit. That's what the CIA put a memo out.
Oh, hey, we got Chip with us. Hey.
Hey, you old buzzard.
Hey, Tosh. Panama.
Bonomi.
Hey, thanks for joining us, Chip. How you doing tonight?
Good, thanks.
I understand you were trying to get Tosh on your show here a couple of times, and I don't know, did you give up or what?
No, just timing. I've been under a gag order, and I've just been released from that, so it's coming time for me to start talking again.
Oh, that's good. Well, so Tosh, you going to be on his show then?
Well, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I got something from him or somebody that said it was him. I mean, it
happens a lot with me. You know what? We're talking a language. We talk pretty much the same kind of stuff. I mean, you know how to pull on the collective. I know that. And so and I know what your tail rotor's doing right now. So little things like that, and little key words that you drop from time to time, and we talk a language. Am I right, Chip? Yep, you got it.
Okay. So where do we go from here?
Hey, Chip, next week, Tosh is going to come back, and he's going to bring with him a couple, 2 or 3 DEA guys and another CIA guy possibly, and we're thinking maybe you might want to join us.
I may be able to. Just, is it the same time slot?
Yeah, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific time.
Sure. Let me check and make sure I have a Thursday available.
Great. Great.
Oh, no. I'm going to be in Miami. I'm sorry.
All right. Well, you'll be with us in spirit then, at least.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we're gonna get into the whole Enrique Camarena torture murder issue, and kind of continue to rehash this whole drug weapon smuggling business. So.
Well, I just came on to say hi to you guys.
I appreciate it.
Say hi to you, and I'm going to head in for bed because I've got an early day tomorrow. Some of us work for a living.
That's what you said. The bread broke.
Yeah.
Yeah, from all of us here at Revolution Radio, thank you for coming on. Say hi to Stu, and congratulations on your show. And hopefully we can get you back in here sometime soon and talk some more. And William, obviously, you got to hook up to Chip and get on his show. When is your show, Chip?
Chip, I hope you got an honest job now.
Well, I work security for the NFL. So.
Are they in trouble?
Yeah, they are.
Tell us when your show is, Chip. So.
We're every Monday from 6 to 8 p.m. and then every Wednesday from 1 to 3 p.m. Those are Eastern times.
Okay, that's on Revolution Radio?
Revolution Radio is the Monday, and on Wednesday is The Edge, who sit in for John Stokes on The Edge. Give him a day off.
All right, excellent. Okay, hey, thanks for joining
us.
Hey,
Chip, one real fast question. When did your dead body wash up on Costa Rica Beach?
Actually, it was Panama. My son told me about it.
Oh.
He called me and he hadn't been able to get me because I was out I had a little place out in the country and it didn't have cellular service. And he called and couldn't get me for 3 days, and he thought it was true. He called me and said, "Oh, thank God I got you, Dad. Are you okay?" I said, "Yeah, I'm fine." Why? He said, "Well, rumors going around. I read it on the internet that your body washed up in Panama."
Well, that's when somebody called me and told me about it, and they told me to be very careful, so I went into hiding myself for a couple of days until I found out it was all BS.
You know what they say, Tosh? Duck.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, Good talking to you, my friend. You
Nice
take care
talking
of
to you.
yourself and be safe.
Thank you for having me, Stephen.
All right. Good night, Chip. Thank you. All right. Well, that was pleasant. Very happy to have Chip Tatum visit us. That was kind of fun, huh, Bill?
Yeah. Are you talking to me, Bill?
Yeah. Bill, Tosh.
Yeah.
I've been calling you Robert here.
Easiest way is Robert Tosh Plumlee. That's what's on my Facebook page. And, you know, in essence of time, I know we got about 20 minutes left, but, I've been posting a lot of this information. Chip is familiar with it. Sally Castillo, DEA, is familiar with it. Hector Bareilles is familiar with it. I've vetted all these persons to make sure I can use their names. These are DEA that was involved in some very, very sensitive hush-hush situation. Phil Jordan, he was in charge of the El Paso Intelligence Center, drug war, extensive background, highly decorated, very well qualified, wrote a book, was in a book, written by Mark Shannon, I believe, Across the River. Again, I don't recommend books, don't even recommend my book. But, anyway, that's, something that the young generation can go look into, and I'm sure they will get a good education.
Well, these are guys that are all going to be on next week, and whether you like it or not, we're going to push your book and their books and everybody's books, and people don't read that much anymore, but we still got to do that.
Yeah. Well, my book's not even written yet, and I've already got it sold, so I got a real problem here.
I should have this problem.
That's a mountain joke, by the way. So, but anyway, back to where we were at. I think we covered 4 Aces there. That was my connection to that particular base down there. Also, I think we covered that how the lineage goes from Mexico task force, gun running into Mexico, covered by ATF in their Fast and Furious. The emphasis went on investigating Fast and Furious, and not on investigating the hard, what I call high-impact weapons that was going across the border legally through the direct commercial sales to the Mexican army, and then various gangs and cartels filtered off those weaponry. So, okay, that same task force was transferred over to the Middle East, got attached to NATO, and then they found the same type operation ongoing in Qatar, Jordan, and that. So I think we covered that. Am I right?
Yep, we did.
Okay. I'm trying to make notes here.
I'm glad you are.
I should have been a damn doctor because I can't read my notes. So I'd be good at writing prescriptions. So anyway, as far as what, people intimidating, most of the intimidation is designed to make you go to local law and report that there's funny things going around you. Local law would say, well, why would you think that something like that's happening? Well, in a case like us, Chip and others, Sally, and, we get a threat, I've been shot at with witnesses in the car. I've had my house firebombed back in 1980, August 1980 in Grant, Colorado, over this same stuff. The attempt to protect myself before the fact, to try to uncover and stop an international gun running operation. And the only reason I wanted to stop the international gun running operation is because I didn't want to take a fall for being responsible for the whole damn international gun running operation. And that's the way it works. The same way with flying cocaine in this country. I mentioned earlier, I ran Drugs for Uncle Sam, done by Neil Matthews, the San Diego Reader, which is on the net if anybody wants to Google. And the reason for doing that, and also getting in touch with Senator Hart, was only to protect myself. In other words, I wasn't interested in trying to really expose anything and be some publicity seeker and say, "Oh, look, I exposed this." I'm not mainstream media. I don't want credit for, this is what I did, and I want a Pulitzer Prize and all that for my great investigative entertainment reporting. That's not where I come from. And so anyway, I'll quit rambling and let you ask some questions here. We're going to be running short on time here before long.
I'm kind of wondering why it is. You must be intimidating or something. I'm thankful that Chip called in. That was really, really something. But you guys out there in the chat room and you listeners, come on here. Area code 347-688-2902. Come on in and join us.
Look, I tell you, what you're going to find when we get into this deep of stuff. I find it with my family. I find it with my friends. I find it on sending out emails. It's okay when you talk peripheral about this stuff. But when you get right down into the weeds and you talk about vetted sources and you're talking about open source and you're talking about bringing people in to become a cohesive operation or cohesive flight arm to going after a particular target, it's
kind of overwhelming, huh? A little bit.
Yeah, it is. It's overwhelming, and it's very. It could be dangerous, but the object is to intimidate and to make you discredit yourself by being labeled as paranoid or a conspiracy freak, and therefore people don't go to where you try to direct them to go. Again, the reason for the Facebook page, I don't care about trying to convince this old generation that let all this happen about what the hell we did and what's going on and how secret it is. It's this new generation that needs to know this, the good ones that can pick up the banner and go to the polls if they know how to check this information and make their own decisions about who they want to elect and who they want to throw out. And I'm always sorry to say the way it looks right now, I think we're almost to the point where we've got to throw all of them out and start all over. But that's impossible. That's not realistic.
Well, there's a couple good ones, like you said. I think somebody in chat was asking who they are. I know Dennis Kucinich is a good one. Rand Paul, he's reasonable. His dad, of course, was one of the best we've ever had. Mm-hmm. Who else is there, though, really?
Well, there's, like I say, there's good ones, but when a new one comes in, in other words, he's got two ways to go. He's got to prove himself, and then he's got to fight the bad apples. So he's got one or two things to do. If he wants to be aligned with his colleagues, he has to make concessions, or he won't last in Congress or the Senate.
Right. Hey, let's talk about the guys that are going to come on next week. I know you just mentioned their names, Borellis, and let's go down the list and talk about them and their backgrounds a little bit, and kind of give people a little heads up about what we're going to be covering next week.
Okay. Well, all right. I don't want to go too much. About what their background, what they did. There's some. And all of us undercover guys, there's always something out there that you might not want to talk about, not because it's going to hurt you, but because it could hurt your loved ones, it could hurt your career, it could, there's a lot of things out there. But Hector's a character. He's one hell of a good guy. I love him like a brother. And we're all brothers in one form or another, and we're also all husband-in-laws in one form or another. Again, a little mountain joke. But Hector's background, he's run the full course. He's been undercover. He's had to defend himself. He's had to take people out. He's a hell of an intelligence operative. And he's made a lot of enemies in DEA. There's a lot of people that say that they are DEA and they did these things. And they also take credit for doing things that Hector did when he was exposed working on the Kiki Camarena. Hector Borellis was the lead investigator for the Kiki Camarena murder, kidnapping. Also, the pilot, Kiki's pilot, was a friend of mine also. Kiki, I knew, we talked and had meetings at the Oaxaca Cafe in Phoenix, Arizona with the Phoenix Organized Crime Detail and the Tri-State Drug Task Force a couple of months before he died. I think it was in October of 84, and he died somewhere, I think, in January of 85. I might be off on my dates. I'm getting to that age where if I don't have it written down in front of me in great big wide letters, I don't know what the hell date it is. So that's Hector, and he feels the same way that I feel, that this young generation is the only way that we're going to get this country back to us. If the younger generation is not interested enough to take the time to go and investigate and go to the polls, with wisdom and knowledge and take these people out that are destroying the freedom of this country and destroying the Constitution. All right, now I'm going to get off my patriotic soapbox, but okay, that's Hector's background. We're all on the same page in that. In fact, they were on the same page when they were doing this stuff 30 years ago. All right, now Phil is another one. He's a damn good DEA operative, a damn good DEA employee, decorated, retired, hell of a nice guy. Wrote a book, or he didn't write the book, but Shannon wrote a book about Across the River. I'd recommend that. There I go again, recommending the book. No, what I'm recommending is a way to talk and find the truth. So he was in charge of the El Paso Intelligence Center during the highest part of the drug war. He knows all about the killings in Juarez by cartel, 6,000 people in 1 year. That's just 1 year. There have been over 70 to 80,000. I think the last count was 80,000 Mexicans killed by cartel. And nobody in this country even knows it. Because if they knew it, it would open up the international gun running that's been going international to Mexico, Argentina, Costa Rica, and over to the Middle East. So there's your reason. Again, I'm going to regress back here. Benghazi, that's the cover-up. The cover-up is not who knew what when. The cover-up is if you get too far into this and these committees really start demanding, like the emails that were released, and they start demanding those other 4 documents that Stevens wrote to them complaining about Stinger missiles, and they cannot answer the 11 questions that I have put out on the internet for 7 months now, because if they answer those 11 questions yes or no, and those documents someday are released from that deal, from that State Department, then that's going to make these people on the record outright liars. And then the American people can do something to get them out of office, whether it be presidential impeachment or throwing those senators and those congressmen that have tried to block this information from the American people. Then you can throw them out of office.
Hey, Tosh, what do you think about this Trey Gowdy and his Benghazi investigation? You think it'll turn into something? Do you think it'll result in
I
Obama
think the only way it's going to turn into something, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, step on you. I'm sorry about that.
You see how you are.
I did it again. My feeling about that is it's going to take the American people to keep pushing at these people. Otherwise, this is going to die on the vine. I don't care who brings it forward. His intentions may be very good, and I believe in him. But the question is, can he pull it off? I don't think so. Not the way things are right now.
I know he's been getting some death threats. So
obviously, hell yeah, he's got to have death threats. You know, I mean, hell yeah. I mean, you got kooks that make death threats. You know what I mean? You got people out there that think they're doing us a favor by putting a death threat on us. I mean, we deal with that every day. We worry about our families. I mean, yeah, that goes with the territory. Damn near 50 years in this stuff, you learn to live with it, or if you don't, you're dead.
That's right.
So,
yeah, if they don't, from what I was told is that if once you start getting they're after you. If they don't get you in a year, they're probably not going to get you.
You know when the time to worry is when you don't get them.
Yeah,
that's as simple as that. When they stop threatening you, intimidating you, then you better put a damn 40 cal in your holster.
Better start packing.
Walk around town. Yeah.
One under the pillow. Yeah.
That's it. So, yeah, like I say, a lot of people don't understand what we're talking about. There's 2 worlds out there. There's a world that I've lived in. I've lived in both worlds. Tried to raise families in both worlds. Anyway.
It's not easy. You can't be a warrior and have a wife and kids at home. It doesn't really work.
Well, there's a world out there that the 8 to 5 cannot even comprehend exist. It's called a Praetorian Guard. Call it the Dogs of War. Call it whatever. Call it straight out assassin teams. But there's another world out there that when you get into the environment that Chip was in, some of the environment that he was in, some of the environment that I was in, the environment that Hector and Phil were in, which we're going to bring on your show next week. Mm-hmm. It's a very hard. Well, I'll put it this way: it's very hard to get the average John Doe that works at a plumbing company or works on the street or he's an exec for whatever. It's very hard to get these kind of people to understand that there is another world out there, and it's controlled by Praetorian guards, which are loyal, similar to the old Roman Praetorian guards. John Stockwell, station chief of Angola, is the man that coined that phrase, and even wrote a book called Praetorian Guard. He put major part of his life trying to expose what went on in Africa, in Angola. There's another secret world tied in with that operation. There's a secret world tied in with the Argentina operation, the Santa Elena, Costa Rica operation, the Ilopango. I mean, I could go on and on and on. This thing's been running rampart, international gun running, for 50 years. Kennedy knew about it and got a hole in the head because of it with one of the weapons that was sold as whatever. And all that other stuff about Oswald, this and that. I don't get into the Kennedy assassination because it's a Klan. And it's been so infiltrated that and when you say Kennedy assassination and you know something, bingo, you're an idiot. You're labeled that way. That's just the way it is. It doesn't make a damn if there's 5 million volumes of documents that come out there that proved otherwise. That whole Kennedy investigation is so contaminated that it means absolutely nothing. And whoever gets close to it and answers questions is going to be contaminated, and they're going to be thrown out of the ballpark. And anything that they actually did that wasn't even related to that over years is also going to be contaminated and thrown out of the ballpark as being uncreditable. That's the way it's designed. In fact, CIA has sent memos out. When you hear people like me blabbering on radio, immediately find a way to label them as a conspiracy freak. There's memos out to that, to their case officers.
Yeah, you and me both. Okay, Julie, a.k.a. Lioness, has joined us. Hey, how you doing?
Hi, good evening, gentlemen. Hi, Stephen and Tosh. I'd just like to say thank you for your courage in coming out and saying all this. I kind of have been fairly close to it, not like you, but knew it was happening. And this particular event with Iran-Contra, that was my first awakening. And so I heard you just a moment ago say, we have to keep on it, and then we'll get these people out of power. But this has been 35 years. Is it going to be another 35 years? We got to keep trying, right?
Well, you say it's been 35 years. It's just now, with all the various corruption, everywhere you turn, there's a new scandal, a new scandal, a new scandal. So therefore, the American people, I believe, and the young people are beginning to become aware, and they're wanting to know more. And as they know more, then they're beginning to find out we got to make changes. I don't know if that answers your question or what, but
it was a wonderful comment. I absolutely agree. It's just I believe it's a shame that it takes so long, because I've been in this fight since then, and yet here we are still. But I really just wanted to call in and say thank you, and thank you, Stephen D. Kelley. And I really look forward to hearing more from you and your friends next week.
Okay, well, we certainly hope you listen and you tell your friends to listen. And I'm not okay. We appreciate it, sweetheart. You're a good patriot out there, and thanks for the call.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Julie. Okay, let's get to this question that came in here from chat. Sindolo is asking about if you know about Mike Rupert and if he was killed.
I knew Mike. In other words, he had his program a couple of times. I don't vouch for people, or try not to. Mike was a damn good guy. In some cases a little bit, off the cannon. In some cases won't do, maybe exaggerate a little bit of what he did know, but he really put his life on the line to try to get the truth out there in the early stages. He had a lot of problems, but as far as suicide, I never pegged him as the type that would commit suicide, but you never really know what's inside a person and what motivates them to do things. I know that I have no plans on committing suicide or plan on having a heart attack, but you never know. And you never know what some coroner may lay on you when he receives a few bucks in, say, Bo's case, Orange County. Mm-hmm. Those kind of things need to be investigated. I think Rupert's case should be also investigated by another source. Get 2, possibly 3 sources and see what their conclusions come up with. These kind of things to do a label or have a coroner, one person, rapidly come out to a crime scene and say, oh, that's suicide, I don't think is right. I think that there should be another committee, maybe not a committee. I don't approve of forming committees to do certain things, but have other qualified people take a look at the evidence that's available and see what kind of conclusions they come to. For instance, it should have been done in Gary Webb's case to see, did he really shoot himself twice in the head with a .45? I've always found that hard to believe, but there again, then I take that viewpoint and I'm immediately labeled as a conspiracy speculating freak. So, and that's the way it's supposed to be. That designs and that throws anybody from getting 2, 3, 4 separate investigations. Dr. Sabot, Jimmy or Colonel Sabot's brother, has spent his lifetime and a fortune trying to get that case looked at by other independent sources. He got that case looked at by independent sources, but he had to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to get it done. Their conclusions came back it was murder. However, the official record had already been established. The Marine Corps, and I'm going to say this, and I got a lot of good Marines out there, and I'm not taking a pop shot at the Marine Corps as a family, but I am taking a pop shot at some of those Marine people that went on to the payoff, that went in and didn't stand behind that Marine that got killed by somebody else, labeled as a suicide. So the Marines deserted and left that man on the battlefield and walked away from him. And I'm talking about the upper echelon of the United States Marine Corps. I'm not talking about the rank and file of the good Marines that live by the principle of Semper Fi. Am I making myself clear on that?
Yeah, very, very much so. I agree. So, but then again, you got to wonder, there was so many years ago, and then how many people have been purged since then to kind of, hide the evidence?
Well, let me coin a phrase here. What difference does it make?
What difference does it make?
It's been so long ago. What difference does it make? It has no bearing on things going on today. I would make a hell of a good politician with what I just said.
Okay, Hillary, I get you.
Sorry about that. I had to play around with that.
Oh,
Makes
God.
me feel good.
Jeez.
I'm not against the Clinton clan. I'm not against any of them. I just wish the hell they'd work for the American people instead of working for special interests and lobbyists. And what it's all about, this transparency, we can't even find out who the damn lobbyists that walk in and out 24 hours a day to the White House and what the hell they're doing there. But I'm not gonna get on a political soapbox, but I've got my opinions. And anyway, I guess we're getting off topic here. So where else we want to go?
Well, we are getting down to the last couple minutes here. What do we got, Sean? What, about 4 minutes remaining?
About 3 minutes left.
3 minutes. All right, so we don't have a whole lot of time, but I want to remind everybody that my guest tonight, Robert Tosh Plumlee, will be returning next week along with a couple of DEA guys and possibly another CIA guy. Unfortunately, you've heard Chip tell us that he won't make it, but it's going to be another interesting show. And yes, although a lot of these events did take place many, many years ago, they're still very relevant today. And it is very important that we bring this back up and try to make it fresh in the minds of the young people that are listening and people all over the world. And this is a very powerful forum for doing that. And I'm sure the powers that be are probably not too happy that we're having this program and that you're here tonight, huh? Huh, Tosh?
Yeah, I know. No, they're not happy at all, and I can't speak for them, but I'm sure they're not throwing a party or anything like that, you know, a celebration.
They're listening in, probably, huh?
Yeah, well, I mean, here's the thing. If they stop the communication, then they've won the battle. And there is a battle. We are at war. In other words, it's time for the sleeping giant, in my opinion, to awake again. We went into World War II fighting 2 battles on 2 continents, and we did it and won them in 4 years, and we did it with slide rule and pencils. Today, we've got the most fantastic communication network, and we can't even get a health program to make sense to the American people. Blah, blah, blah.
No, but I just, I wanted to say something that, you look at the mess and the horrible mess that is the Veterans Administration hospital network and look at what they're doing. I mean, my God, they've got kill lists, of our veterans. And yet these are the same government entity that thinks that they can run our entire healthcare system. It's, I'm just amazed that nobody brought up the track record of the VA when they were discussing Obamacare.
Look,
crazy,
if this had happened 25 or 30 years ago, the American people would have been outraged, and these people that brought this to pass would have been scalped, shorts taken off, and hung by the nearest flagpole. There was a time in this country where someone dropped the American flag on the ground, he'd get his ass kicked by some Marine.
Well, that's it. The show is over. I hear music coming. I thank you, Tosh, for being with me. I look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, all the listeners. Thank you, everybody in chat. Big show next week. Please join us. I will have a roundtable Tuesday or Wednesday, 1 a.m., also Thursday, 1 a.m., and back here Thursday with Tosh. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. Good night. God bless. Adios.
Adios.